And so I'm sitting there talking to this guy next to me, and I'm like, yeah, I said, oh, I think we did pretty good on that. Next thing I know, a guy's standing beside me, and he's like, oh, I'm not sure. Why do you think that was a good trade? And I turn and I look up, and this guy sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, are you Ken Griffey Jr.? And he's like, yeah. And I know. And the most random thing, he's in town for this Pro-Am golf tournament, and he wanted a place to go hang out where he wouldn't be bothered. And this is it's just a small little private club. And so they invited the owner was up there doing this golf tournament with it. And he's like, come on down to my club. Nobody will bother you. It's just small. There's not that many. And there were probably only maybe 16 of us in the club that night. And Griffey sat down and just sat there telling the stories for like 3 hours. It was the most amazing thing. But the most amazing thing to me was, I'm like, how do you know what pitch is? And he's like, well, it's like poker. And he starts running down all these pitchers. Like, they've all got tells. Every one, they do something a little different when they're doing this ball or that ball, and when they're throwing a curve. And that was the most fascinating thing I'd ever. And now I try to pay attention and see, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he does. He holds it like this, or he does this when he's doing a fastball. And they do something just a little different. And the batters, man, the good ones learn to tell from that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely insane. I had to tell back in 2019 that I didn't know I was doing, and then went to New York, and Gleaver hit that 450-foot homer off me. And next day I come in, and Carl and Sandy talk to me about, hey, this is kind of what you're doing. Like, I bet you they know. So then I pitched that night. The very next night I pitched, and I switched it up and made sure I didn't do that. I went 1, 2, 3 with 2 punchies, and they looked absolutely foolish. And I was like, I bet you they knew. Like, because there are certain guys, like Chase Utley used to be one that absolutely would just be able to tell within a pitch or two. And he'd be able to pick up your sign. If he was on second base, you had to change sign every single batter because he'd be able to pick it up. Wow. Like, that's how good some of these guys are. And it's absolutely incredible. And those are like some trades of the game that people don't really know or don't understand, that they can see little minute details from your pitching windup, or how you're holding a ball, or how your wrist looks holding, a changeup rather than a fastball, or a slider rather than a cutter, and stuff like that. They can tell just by that little minute difference of the way your wrist is positioned in your glove. And it gives them a huge advantage when they're up there.
Yeah. I mean, I just found that so fascinating to think of that.
Yeah, it was so it reminds me of Barry Bonds. He was our hitting coach in 2016 with Miami.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a surreal moment, being able to hang with him all year and, watch him do his thing. And then the other was AJ Ramos was coming back from some injury, and he had to throw at PNC Park at Pittsburgh. He threw off the mound, he threw 15 pitches or something, and Barry got in the last 3 or 4 pitches. And I was like, let me see. And he wasn't going to swing or anything. He just wanted, stand in and see. And the very first pitch, he sits up there, and right before he releases his hand, he goes, fastball in, no. And sure enough, it was a fastball in. That was a little too far in. It was a ball. And I was like,
what?
Okay, probably knew. And then next pitch, he goes, change up away. And sure enough, change up away, right when he's releasing it. And it was a strike. He's like, that was a nice pitch. And I just kind of looked up. I'm like, okay. And the next pitch, it was a slider in the dirt. And right before he releases it, he goes, slide, no. And sure enough, slider in the dirt, no. And I'm just like, what in the world?
Wow.
And the very last one was a fastball away, I think it was, or it was, I think it was a fastball away or changeup away or something. But as soon as he was about to release it, he's like, that ball's not staying in the park. and like, it was a pitch that definitely would not have stayed in the park if Bonds was up and hit in his prime.
Wow.
I was just like, that is absolutely – he called 4 pitches exactly where they were, knew what was coming, Like if a hitter knows that, I mean, you're not going to beat them. I don't care how good your stuff is. Like you're just not going to beat them.